Thanks everybody for joining us. I'll do some brief introductions to get us going here, but ultimately we want to be able to present to you guys in a timely fashion today, because I know some of you are taking some of your lunch time to sit in on this, and we definitely appreciate you doing that. I see many of you have your cameras off right now, and I've been presenting online for a few years now, but obviously more specifically in the last 18 months. So I would love it if one or two of you would turn the cameras on, just so I know that I'm talking to real humans. And whenever you present to a group, a live audience is fascinating because you can often take cues from what's happening inside the audience. And when you're looking at a bunch of blank screens, it can be very challenging. So I challenge a few of you to turn on your screens. That would be very helpful. And obviously it enhances the presentation as well. So perfect. So my name is Tim Hansen. I am part of the Sutton Benefits and Pension team. And this is your advisory team, myself, Tim, Evan, and Danae. I'm a certified financial planner. I've been a pension advisor for a few years, been with Sutton for 10 and in the industry for 16 plus years. Evan is our pension advisor associate. He's been with Sutton for over 7 years, and he's part of our pension team. He provides education. I believe he did some education for you guys earlier this year, and he's certainly there to assist you in your decisions that you make financially, and is definitely a benefit to all you employees. Danae is our newest member of the pension team, and she's been with us for almost 2 years. So I say new, but not that new. And she's in charge of coordinating our plan management and pension plans. So they're all three of us are on the call today, and we're all going to give you a bit of information about your plan specifically. So what we're going to talk about, I do like to sort of share a bit of general information about RSPs, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in relation to them. So we'll talk about RSPs specifically. We'll talk about the fact that it's a voluntary plan for this group of people. Evan's going to share some good news about the fund lineup and additions that we've made since taking over the plan about 1.5 years ago. And we're also going to talk about the service and support that's available to you. And we're going to end off the presentation today talking a bit about retirement planning. Just some little pieces of information that I think are very important for the average person to understand, and things for you to think about. During the presentation, quite often questions will come up. So if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat. You can type it into the chat and we'll try and catch it. And if I don't, Evan or Danae will flag me down and let me know that there's a question being asked. We'll also have some time at the end of the presentation for maybe topics that weren't necessarily covered during the presentation. So we'll also have that available to you. It's also being recorded. So if you have some co-workers that weren't able to join the presentation today, it will be recorded and distributed amongst the office for you guys to be able to watch it afterwards. So let's get things rolling. So let's talk about RSPs. Everybody calls them RRSPs. Well, what does this actually stand for? A registered retirement savings plan. Pretty straightforward, but it's a type of an account. One of my pet peeves when I'm out just talking with friends and hanging out is that they talk about RSPs as though it's a specific investment, and that's not necessarily correct. An RSP is a type of an account. Inside the account, you can have multiple kinds of investments. You can have GICs, you can have stocks, bonds, term deposits, all sorts of things. But the RSP is just an account. So it's not necessarily the performance of the account, but it's the performance of the investments within it. What's interesting about RSPs is they're actually a federally regulated account, which you must be 18 years of age to hold one. You have to be a resident of Canada, and you must have a social insurance number. And most importantly, you must have earned income in Canada. So by earning income in Canada, you gain RSP room. The advantage of depositing money into it is that you're actually lowering your income tax bracket, or your income tax payable. So by making a deposit, you reduce your income tax, and that really is the advantage. You're not getting away from taxes, you're essentially deferring it down the road. What's nice about the investment growth inside an RSP account is that it remains tax sheltered while it's in there. That's why it's important to understand the type of investments that you're using. So you want to use something that's going to grow, because that's the true advantage, is it being able to grow it tax-free. So more specifics about an RSP account. So you are getting a tax benefit to deposit the money into a plan, but when you draw the money out, like I mentioned earlier, you're deferring tax. You actually have to pay tax to withdraw the money. And there are some guidelines for that as well. The first $5,000 is taxed at a rate of 10%. It's withheld at 10%. From 5 to 15,000 is 20%, and 15 plus is 30%. Now, this is tax being withheld by the investment company. This goes to Revenue Canada. And then when you file your income tax at the end of the year, you're going to add that amount, if you took out $5,000, to your total income for the year. So it is possible that you're paying a higher amount of tax. And it really depends on how much money you make. Because as we know in Canada, the more money we make, the more money they take. We have a progressive tax system. Higher tax as we earn more income. You do lose the contribution room when you withdraw funds from an RSP. So it's key to not treat it like a savings account or short-term savings account for that matter. It's more long-term. So you don't want to be going in and out of an RSP account because you lose the room. And when you turn 71, in the year that you turn 71, you must turn that registered retirement savings plan into a RIF, or a registered retirement income plan. Income being the key word. Once you deposit it or transfer it into a registered retirement income plan, going forward from that point on, you do have to take money out of the account, and the government designates how much you must take each year, but you have to convert it at the latest by age 71. So the advantage of doing a payroll plan like we have set up for you guys is that you're getting the deductions at source. So by contributing $100 off of your paycheck, very simply put, if you were in a 35% marginal tax bracket, it's only going to be a reduction of $65 off of your paycheck. So a great way to save, and you're actually getting a $100 deposit, but it's only reducing your income by $65. On the other hand, if you were to wait till the money is deposited in your bank account and then deposit it into your own RSP, you're not going to get that $35 back until you file your income tax at the end of each year. And guess what? The government controls how much our RSP contributions grow by. So they do have some rules for that as well. So the maximum amount that can be contributed, the maximum amount that your RSP room will grow in 2021 is $27,830, or 18% of your previous year's income, whichever is lower. So that number is actually increasing each year by inflation. For 2022, it's going to go up to $29,210. So you can tax shelter a significant amount of your income, but it does depend on these rules. So what should you use it for? The question we get asked quite frequently is, what's better, Tim, an RSP or a TFSA? Well, really, there's advantages of both. The main advantages of an RSP is that you should be using it towards saving for retirement. So that means long-term saving. You're putting the money in there, you're getting a tax benefit today, and yes, you have to pay tax when you take the money out, but that's going to be, depending on the stage of your career, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from today. You can also use the money to purchase your first home, like the home buyer's plan, or to further your education using the lifelong learning program. TFSAs, on the other hand, we believe they can also be used and should be used for retirement. So a tax-free savings account is a way for you to tax shelter money. You don't get the same RSP benefit of depositing the money, but the money does grow tax sheltered. And when you draw it out, you don't pay income tax. What's neat about a TFSA is that it's a real advantage because you can invest long-term money in there, whereas they're often treated as a short-term savings option for emergency savings, or what I like to call fun money, saving for a boat or a car or something like that. We think a TFSA is better utilized as a retirement savings vehicle, but not necessarily an automatic replacement for an RSP. And that's where some of our service can help you decide which is better for you specifically as an individual. So let's learn a bit more about the home buyer's plan. So if you often people dream of getting their first home, buying a condo with a great view, with a view of a golf course or something like that. So if you're thinking of buying a home and you want to use the home buyers plan, this is a government initiative that allows Canadians to borrow $35,000. So that's up to $35,000 from your RSP to buy or build a qualifying home. So this can be done for your spouse or yourself, and there are no tax implications. So I talked about withdrawing from an RSP earlier, and in this case, there would be no taxes applicable. So a big advantage. You must qualify for it to make it happen. So you have to have not owned a home in the previous 4 years, and this includes you and your partner. And you must intend to actually occupy the home. So not necessarily an option if you want to become a house flipper or something like that, but really a good way for you to save up, get some tax advantage savings, and then buy your first home. Once you make the withdrawal in the following year after you actually occupy the home, you're taking 15 years to pay back that amount. So how do you figure out how much you have to pay back each year? It's 1/15 for 15 years. And you're not getting the additional RSP deduction that you originally got. And by payback, all you're doing really is just saving money back into your RSP account. It's a great program for first-time home buyers, and we often help young families utilize it to be able to contribute to their first home, get that down payment saved up. If you want more information about it, you must be a Canadian resident, obviously, to participate in the home buyers plan. And there's great information at the Canada Revenue Agency website specific to the first-time home buyers plan. The lifelong learning program is similar. It's about furthering your education. So available to you and your spouse. What's different is that you can take up to $20,000 out of your RSPs. You can only take $10,000 in the first year, in a year total, but $20,000 you can take out, and you can pay that back over a 10-year period. So a slightly shorter year time period than the first-time home buyers plan, but the same philosophy applies. So whatever you take out, 1/10 of it must be paid back. The payback period is a bit different because it really depends on whether or not you qualify for a 3-month education program in the years following your withdrawal. So something that you might want to look into if you're investigating this option, because you want to make sure that you stay qualified for the program until you complete your education and you have the income going in to be able to deposit back into your RSPs. So how much should you save? Well, typically within programs, there's the option to have a matching plan. In this case, yours is what we call a voluntary plan. So there's no matching amount, but it is important to participate in it because that option of being able to have the payroll deductions at source is a very powerful tool. So it doesn't cost you as much to be able to contribute off your actual paycheck. And ultimately, you're getting that tax savings immediately. And it's all about working towards the goal, or the rule of thumb that I like to share with everyone, is that you need to save a minimum of 10% per year of your gross income. So if you forget everything that Tim says today, please remember that 10%. That 10% is a key piece. And I often give you a range. I'm like, it's between 10 and 20% of your gross household income. So if your spouse earns $50,000 and you earn $50,000, that means that you should be contributing at least $10,000 per year towards your retirement savings. And that's for what we consider basic retirement. If you've had years in the past where you're unable to contribute, that's why we say 10 to 15 to 20%, because you can obviously save more later in your career when your disposable income might be higher. But the earlier you start, the better off you're going to be. So in this example, you can see here, we have John and Susan. They're each taking a slightly different approach to investing long-term. John starts in year 1 and he saves $50,000 over 10 years and stops. Susan, on the other hand, is not as convinced it's a good idea. So she waits 10 years before she starts. And in her 10 years, she saved $100,000. But John's money's already been in there for 10 years. And he only deposited 50. And in the end, using a nominal rate of return of 8%, John would end up with $168,000 with $50,000 contributed. And Susan, she's still money ahead, but not quite as much as John. So in this case, it's important to note that time is money. And when you talk about compounding interest, this is the power of having your money invested as much as you can at a young age and letting it grow. So it's not necessarily a good idea to do like John, to just stop investing. Had John continued investing, he would probably have almost 2.5 times what Susan does, but ultimately he's done very well. So your plan is a voluntary plan through Manulife that we set up last year. You can join at any time. You can make withdrawals off your payroll. You can transfer money in from your personal RSP, from an old RSP. And if you want, you can do lump sum contributions as well. So a real advantage to you as members of the group. And why should you do it? Well, we've all seen the commercials that talk about what 1% can do on your management fees of your investment portfolio. And that's really the advantage that you have here. So within your personal plan, I don't know everybody's situation, but in most cases, unless you have a large sum of money invested, you are going to be typically paying higher fees. So with a group plan, we're pooling your investments together and you're able to take advantage of lower fees. So using a 1% differential on the same $25,000 that you've invested at the same time within your group plan versus your personal, over a period of 25 years, you would end up with $18,000 in your pocket by contributing to the group plan. So definitely lower fees is the reason that you want to consider it. So like I said, it's voluntary for you to use. The payroll deduction is the advantage. The tax savings is at source. You guys can actually direct your bonuses that you get from McKercher into the plan. And there's not going to be any taxes withheld from that. And that's a big advantage. So if you got a $2,000 bonus, it can go directly into your RSP plan. No taxes are withheld. If you were to receive that $2,000 and your tax bracket was 30%, you're only going to get it a net of $1,400. And yes, you can still contribute it to your plan. But the real advantage is being able to shift it over directly into the plan. And like I mentioned earlier, transferring money into the plan, if you're interested in doing that, talk to myself or Danae or Evan about it so that we can help you understand how you can take advantage of the lower management and investment fees. So what is an investment fund? Well, these are the type of investments that we put inside the plan. So essentially what it is it's a pool of investments. So everybody pools their money together, and from that, your money is utilized to buy different stocks and bonds inside the plan. So it's money from lots of different people, not necessarily just the people at McKercher, but through other plans that we operate and others within the Manulife family. The money is invested according to the objectives. So they'll say it's a Canadian equity fund. So that means that they're going to invest in Canadian equities. It could be a global equity fund, which means that they're investing in global companies. It could be a bond fund, which means lower risk, investing in bonds. So they'll pre-state what they're going to be investing in, and they have to stick to those rules. And these guys are professionals. They make good investment decisions. So lots of talk in the last year about companies like Tesla, GameStop. They'll make decisions on whether it's a good time to buy something like that. And they're professionals. This is what they do for a living. And they're making big purchases. They're not buying one Tesla stock or one GameStop share. They're buying multiples, and they're assessing the value, the viability of the company that you're investing in to determine whether it's a good investment. What's nice about that is that they have an access to a wide range of investments at a very affordable purchase price. And that's what we've tried to do within the plan. So give you something that you can choose from that gives you good options, and ultimately diversifies it for you. So diversification is the fancy way of saying we give you multiple options. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's a saying that goes with investing. Basically going back 1,000 years, if we were able to invest 1,000 years, we haven't been able to, but ultimately you should never put all your eggs in one basket. Buying one stock and holding could work out, but it might not. You need to diversify. You have to have multiple investments inside your portfolio. So let's talk about some of the options that are available inside your plan. So there's a couple different options for you guys as voluntary members. The first is what we call the hands-off approach. It's pretty straightforward in that we have either target date or target risk funds. The target date funds are super simple. You pick the date that's closest to your retirement and you choose it. And what will happen over time is the risk will be adjusted depending on how close you are to retirement. So pick your date, done, automatically adjusted for you. The target risk funds, also very simple, but slightly different. So what they do, it's a hands-off approach. You basically complete the questionnaire to determine what your individual risk tolerance is, and then you choose that pool. That pool of investments will stay within that risk tolerance for its entire life, and you can assess or change or complete the questionnaire again if you feel like your risk tolerance has been adjusted. But ultimately, it will assess the risk based on you specifically. So both these approaches are relatively simple. So if you're someone that says, hey, Tim, not really interested in this stuff, I want something simple, this is where we would steer you. So either complete the risk tolerance questionnaire to come up with an answer, or pick a date that's closest to your retirement. There's also a hands-off approach. This is for someone who might have an interest in the investment world, likes to do a bit of their own research. And there are investments that are in the plan that you can choose to say, I want Canadian investments, I want global, I want US, whatever you choose. It's actively managed by you. So essentially you're deciding how much, what percent of each investment is going into each of those funds. And you can assess and change that over time, depending on how you feel. So to go to the first option, so talking about the hands-off approach, really it's about figuring out what type of investment you are. So it's your investment style. So simple questions like your age, your demographics, how much income do you earn, how much debt do you have, when do you plan on utilizing the money? It's a relatively simple system that you can answer online, and it will give you the proper portfolio based on your age and the answers to the questions. The target risk funds, like I said, they're easy to choose. It's very much a hands-off approach. It's directed by professionals, and the managers are rebalancing as things happen. So what does that mean? That means as the environment changes, as the economy changes, they're not just leaving it alone. They will sell Tesla if they need to sell Tesla. They will buy it if they need to buy it. They'll make those decisions on your behalf. And it stays at the risk level that you've predetermined. So you don't have to worry about something suddenly changing within the portfolio and going beyond what you're comfortable with. So the target risk funds are set up in 5 pools. We have the conservative all the way to aggressive. So there's 5 different pools of investments. I like to point out that the term aggressive in this case is not necessarily a true aggressive investment. It's still medium risk, but it is 100% equity, which simply means that it's 100% invested in stock. The other end of the spectrum at the conservative level is only 25% stock, 75% fixed income. So the key difference between those 2 points is at the top end on the aggressive portfolio, you're going to see more activity like this, more up and down, more fluctuations. And overall, over a long period of time, 10, 15 years down the road, you will always outperform with an aggressive portfolio over a conservative portfolio. But the roller coaster ride is what you really have to understand whether or not you're going to enjoy it. The average person fits right in the middle at that 60-40 split. So that's 60% equity, 40% fixed income. It's a balanced investor. And that's where 80% of Canadians fall. So if you complete the questionnaire and you're in your 20s, it's going to actually try and push you closer to the advanced or aggressive. If you're not comfortable with that, you can actually override it and choose balanced if you choose. The same can be said on the downside of the risk tolerance. If we're within a 2 or 3 year window of retirement, it's possible that it's going to try and put you in that conservative window. If you'd like to take a little bit more risk that you're comfortable with, you can certainly override it and move it into that balanced portfolio as well. The other hands-off approach, the target date funds, I've already talked very briefly about. So easy to choose. Same philosophy in that the professional managers are diversifying the portfolio and they're rebalancing it as they go. So they're buying and selling as they need to. And really, it stays appropriate to your age level versus your risk tolerance. So the theory here is that when we're younger and we have a longer period of time for our investments to recover, is that we can take more risk. And as we get closer to retirement, we don't have that same abilities to be able to have our investments recover. So sometimes we want to take some of the risk off the table. So what does that look like? Well, here's some examples. So the 2040 plan would put you currently with almost, I think it's a 90-10 split. So 90% equity, 10% fixed income, all the way down. If you were retiring this year, you would be in that 25% equity, 75% fixed income. So the increments are in 5-year increments. So every 5 years, your risk tolerance, or sorry, your risk exposure changes in your investment portfolio. These are easy. These are super easy. It does address the concerns that people have of taking risk off the table as we get close to retirement. There are situations, though, where people shouldn't take all the risk off the table. So to go to a ultra conservative position might be the right choice, but might not be. So I caution you to still have some discussions with Evan or myself to ensure that this is right for you, and just be conscious of what we mean by risk. Basically, what that's doing is it's taking risk off the table, which ensures a lower rate of return. So you can determine that by choosing a date that's close to your retirement, but you can also, we would often steer you towards the risk tolerance funds in place of this, but this is a very easy option as well. So here's the examples that I talked about as each year passes. So right now, this is showing the 2020 fund. So that one's going to disappear here pretty quick, and you'll see the 2065 fund appear on the lineup.
So I'm going to quickly go through, there's been a recent change to your guys' plan. So I don't know if anyone here has been on the voluntary group RSP already. I think it started earlier this year in February. If you have been on the plan already, your investment options have changed. So this is a recent change. We just refreshed the investment fund lineup. Previously, I think you might have only had the options of those handoff approaches. You only had the target risk and the target date options. So fund lineup completely refreshed. We've added 17 new investment options. You'll have access to both passive investments and active. So passive, it means that you're tracking an index. So if you ever watch the news and they talk about the stock market, the Dow or the TSX, those are indexes tracking investment markets. So passive investments will more follow those. Active is where those fund managers are making those decisions. So you'll have access to both of those kind of options, and this is effective immediately. So this is already in effect. If you looked at your investments, your options last month even, this wasn't yet available. So that has changed. So you can go quickly to the next slide, Tim. So when I talk about this investment fund lineup, this is the hands-on approach that Tim mentioned. If you're a financially savvy investor, or if you're someone who has an advisor that you work with already, you can even take the options in this plan and show it to them. You can take it to your advisor because they have a plan in place for you already, and they'll be able to kind of tell you how these investments fit in with your current plan. Because we wouldn't want your investments here to be doing one thing and then your retirement plan doing another thing, right? We want everything all aimed in one direction, all working together for a common purpose. So this is a really good option for this. The funds that we just added cover a range of investments. You'll have Canadian funds, international funds, some global investment funds, as well as some bond funds if you want to sell a portion of your money conservatively invested. And there's even more specific options inside the different funds. You'll have dividend funds. There's a small cap investment fund, so that's focused on smaller companies, as well as a specialty fund. There's a real estate fund in there. If you're ever unsure, so even if you're the kind of person who really likes digging into the numbers, you consider yourself well-informed and educated, but you're still not 100% sure, please feel free to reach out to us. We're your pension advisors here at Sutton, and we're here to help. So we want to make sure that we get you set up the right way the first time so that you can just be comfortable and confident with how your plan is invested going forward. So this is a recent change, and yeah, I would encourage everyone who's already on the plan to potentially rethink how you're invested and reach out to us if you have any questions, or if you're not sure if you should change, and we can kind of help determine what the right path is for you. So your investments, when you make your decisions, they're not locked in. So if you start off in, for example, the balanced fund and then want to go hands-on later, you can make that choice. You're not going to be locked in. You can make those choices yourself online as well. So once you get onto the plan, you'll have an online portal login, which we'll cover in another couple slides. If you sign up for the plan and don't make a selection, your default investment is the conservative fund. So I'd recommend everyone try and make sure you fill out all your forms and paper to choose an investment. The conservative fund, it's very conservative. It's probably not right for many people on this meeting. If you're very close to retirement, maybe, but otherwise it's probably not the right option. So you'll want to make sure that you go through that process and select something. And anything else related to your investments, your online portal is your best bet. You'll find your fund reports, any returns on your investments if you're wondering, how have they performed over the past 10 years? What's the long-term performance? Perfect, it's all going to be there for you. And you can also confirm those investment management fees. So that's a big benefit into this plan. So I would recommend, a lot of people, if I ask them, they don't know what their fees are. If you have something invested at RBC or at the bank or with another advisor, most people don't know what their fees even are. So I just recommend you refresh your memory, get familiar with what those investment fees are, both there and in this plan, because that could be an important factor. Tim kind of covered how that 1% lower fees could add up to tens of thousands of dollars before retirement. So makes a big deal. The online portal, a great resource for anything investment related.
Sorry, I had to get myself off mute here. Okay, so we want you guys to all enroll into the plan, of course. It is voluntary, but this is kind of what it looks like when you go to enroll. And Christina will either send you a link. She may have already shared that with you guys, but there's a link and it just kind of does this online enrollment there for you. We also have a PDF version of the booklet to enroll as well, if you want a copy of that. And then in the booklet, and I believe when you do, just kind of click on the link and let it take you through the process. It'll take you to that personality or investment personality questionnaire. And so it just kind of prompts you to do that. And that's the best way to get started. Then there's also the app. That's probably one of the easier ways to navigate with your investments and make any changes and check your statements if you want to do that. But then there's also the group retirement line that you can use to contact Manulife if you have any problems with any of that. But like Evan said, and Tim, we're here as well to support you.
I had trouble finding the unmute button there as well, Danae. So it must be something where they're hiding it on us today. So thanks, Evan and Danae, for sharing a bit of that information. Yeah, really, the benefits for you guys is that this is an easy way to save for retirement. The convenience of the payroll deduction, I can't emphasize that enough, because it does make it super easy. It doesn't impact your paycheck as much as you think. And the lower investment management fees are what we really want to emphasize. And I think it's a trend that we've seen in the investment industry over the last 15 to 20 years, and yet it's always been available inside group plans. So the investment options that Evan alluded to that we've added to the plan are relatively straightforward. So any hesitation you've had based on investment selection in the past, we certainly feel like we've given you great options based on what we see as the Sutton Fund lineup, and we're pretty excited to be able to open that door for all of you. And the service and support is that we're really here to help you make good decisions with your money. You know, the last 18 months during the pandemic, we've seen significant challenges in our economy, and we know that things are going to be different in the future, in that we're going to see logically high inflation, higher taxes, and those types of things. So you want to make sure that you're making good decisions with your money to get the most from it. So when it comes to your actual retirement planning, it is key that every situation is treated differently. So there's no template that I can take and I can apply to each and every one of you. It is very unique to your family situation, which would include your ability to earn income, your partner's ability to earn income, your age, and many other things included in that. So really what we're trying to do is that you need to understand that determining what your goals and objectives are is the first step. So knowing what your short-term goals are and your long-term goals. So looking as far into the future as you can. We usually recommend looking out 15 to 20 years to say, what do I want life to look like at that point in time? I want to have a cabin, Tim. I want to be able to travel with my family. I want to have a place overseas. I don't know what that looks like, but really it's setting it as a goal. And then once you have that long-term objective, you work backwards to today. So trying to figure out, what can I do today to be one step closer to that vacation property, if that's what you choose. We also want to emphasize the importance of evaluating your current investment and saving strategy. Evan alluded to it briefly. What we find with what can be offered to people working on their own is that if they have the time and the energy, they can certainly make good investment decisions. But if you're just going with a lot of the out-of-box options that are out there, it might not necessarily align with your goals. So what does that mean? Well, your investment strategy has to support your retirement date. So you have to be earning enough on your investments to be able to retire on time. We'll help you also look at things like your insurance. If you have life insurance, there's some tax planning that's always required within your future financial planning. Your wills, obviously you guys have some expertise in-house on evaluating your wills, but really we just want to understand what are the implications tax-wise of how it's going to be executed. And for estate planning purposes, I think over the last, again, 18 months, we've had more people interested in understanding what would happen to their estate. And Saskatchewan's seen some significant changes in the last 15 to 20 years in relation to real estate values going up, which includes farmland, and we want to make sure that people are able to understand what would happen if their estate were executed today in an untimely fashion. And if you're interested in discussing some of these things in more detail, we're going to open up the floor to questions here in a few minutes. So you certainly have some group questions if you're interested in sharing with the group. And if you want to reach out and talk to us one-on-one, you can certainly do that as well. So I'm available to have a brief conversation one-on-one if you're interested in doing that. Evan is as well. And Danae can certainly provide some guidance as well. So Danae, do you want to share a bit about our smart perks?
Yeah, so since you guys work for McKercher, this is offered to you and your families. So these are all just local businesses that we partnered with to provide discounts to you. So you can see on the screen there's a variety of different businesses all in Saskatoon. And so if you just Google Sutton Smart Perks, it should pop up and you can actually go in there and see what kind of discounts you can get. So please utilize that and check it out. There's some good ones on there, that's for sure.
Thanks, Danae. Awesome. So I'll open up the floor to questions. If anybody has any questions, if you are close to your computer, you can hit the unmute button and share your question. Or if you're not comfortable talking on screen, you can also type it into the chat area. So awesome. One of my favorite questions, stock tips. There are no stock tips, you guys, and there are no get rich quick schemes. It's an interesting dynamic in that the investment world is always hot with everybody has an idea or a way to get rich quick. And our belief is that there is no easy way to do it. Hard work, saving the proper amount. I said, if you forget the whole presentation today and you remember that you need to save 10 to 15% of your income, you're halfway there. So yeah, there's no hot stock tips that we can give you today. No other questions this morning? Awesome. Okay. Nobody else has figured out the unmute button. Perfect. Anybody else? So we'll this won't be the last time you see us, but we'll close off for today. So if you do close off the presentation today and you have some questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out. So we're located on Quebec Avenue here in Saskatoon. You can call us at our local number, 306-934-5540. If you're out of town, we do have a toll-free number as well. So 1-800-821-4366. And you can find all of us through our website as well. If you wanted to reach out specifically to myself or Evan or Danae, please do so. Yeah, I just encourage you to reach out, and hopefully we can help you. So thanks very much, everybody, for coming today.